Hello YouTube, Elder Fabulous here, back with a Final Fantasy XIV video. Today, I'm going to be discussing tips for new players. If you're new to the game, it's a great game. I highly recommend it. I have been playing it for a while. This is my 4th character, and I've just made it to Stormblood on this character. And let me say, the expansions do get better over time. But we're going to talk about, some early tricks to give your character an edge in the early game. I know a lot of new players, when they're first exploring the game, there's a lot of stuff that they miss. And there's just a lot of practical things you can do to give yourself that edge, especially when you're in dungeons and raids. So we're going to talk about that, starting with number 1. So starting off, we are in New Gridania. Pretty much whatever major city you start in, there's a little shop center that you can go to, and in this shop center you can find a apothecary, or an apothecary, and you can find a culinarian to which you could buy food supplies as well as potion supplies. And in the beginning cities, they're really cheap, so it's a very affordable option to give your character some extra stat buffs in the beginning of the game, and even later too. So I will show you that now. So coming this way, right here, we have an independent apothecary. So this is especially good if you're playing magical based characters. So right here, they have also for tanks as well, and DPS too if you're not healing per se. They have potions here to give you some extra health points in case you're in a dungeon and your healer needs a little bit of help. You can just use a potion on yourself. There's also a high potion here, which is a little bit more expensive, but still really early option that you can work with to give you a bit more health. And we also have ether and high ethers, so one gives you 600 MP and the other one gives you 700. As you can see, all magical characters are stacked at 10,000, so the 600 and 700 MP regain from a potion makes a huge difference. Actually, it's pretty good. Obviously it's not the best, there are better options, but in the early game you can't go wrong with this. And as a healer myself personally, more so with Scholar than White Mage. I find myself having an extra source of mana regen is very nice. But to be honest, you'd probably burn through potions more as a Scholar than a White Mage, because White Mage has a lot more resource management. But yeah, Apothecary is a great way to go. So there's that. There's also a culinarian around here somewhere. Let me see here, right here. So, the culinarian, sorry, I'm trying to use one hand to run around here. Culinarian also has food options, very early game food options. As you can see, the price is dirt cheap. So, boiled eggs, really good starting option if you want to value some more critical hit. Tree toad legs, amazing as well for the direct hit rate to start with. You can also go with some of the crafter food options too. The saute here, the flatbread for tanks, and yeah, there's a lot of good options. I personally started with boiled eggs for the crit, and so the way this works, the stats are a little confusing. At first I thought 8% was an added 8% chance to crit, but no, that's not what that is. Essentially, so the boiled eggs here, so 8% for a max of 2. Basically what that means is, if we go to our stats here, my critical hit is currently about 1k, so if we take 8% of 1k from eating that food, it'll add on that extra percentage. So basically 8% of whatever 1000 is will be added on, except it's a max of 2, so basically I'm only going to get +2 to crit. Not amazing at this level, but in the early game it makes up, it definitely adds up, I would say. And also, let me see here, forgive me, I'm trying to do this with one hand because I'm holding up the mic. Here we go. So, and the boiled egg as well gives you a 3% experience bonus, which is pretty tiny, but over time it definitely adds up. So I would highly recommend picking up food for the early game to give you that extra edge in combat, as well as the extra XP gain, as it will definitely give you the edge that you need to make your character a little bit better than what they otherwise would be. Also, once you get to Heavensward, you'll have a lot more options in terms of food that you can buy. So I will take us over to Ishgard and show you that right now. So once you make it to the Heavensward expansion, eventually you'll come to Ishgard, and in the market sector of Ishgard, you'll find a carvery guy here who also sells food options. And the stats here are a bit better. So there's only, for example, if we go to crit focused, actually there's not a crit one. If we go to the saute here, a determination of 4% of whatever our total stat is up to a max of 10. So the percentage looks smaller, but you're technically getting more out of your stats because by the time you hit level 50, your total stats in general are going to go up. So the sautés here, great budget option as well, very cheap. You can definitely buy plenty of these. A stack of 99 will cost you about 30k, and of course if you're saving your gil, 30k is not that bad, especially for food options. So, and also it'll still give you that experience bonus of 3%. So by the time you hit Heavensward, I'd recommend picking up these. There's also another place that you can go to if you're looking for different options at let me just go ahead and take you there. So if you come over to Camp Drybone, there is a shopkeeper there that'll also sell dodo omelets, which will give you some extra stats as well, but they won't, I don't think they'll give you as much as this guy too. So that's another option if you're looking for food to go with. And let me take you to the apothecary because there's more to be seen there. So right over here we also have access to mega ethers, which are a little bit more expensive. So 800 a pop. So it's going to be, if you were to buy a whole stack, that would be 80k. So that is definitely a lot more than the high ether for only 100 MP point difference, which is, in my opinion, not really that worth it if you're just going to buy it outright. You're better off just using high ethers, but the option is there if you want it, if you're playing a magical based character. So yeah, pretty much stock up on really cheap food, really cheap potions if you want to do that as well. And you pretty much have that early game edge that will honestly carry over towards each expansion too, until of course you make it to the most recent one, which is Shadowbringers, and of course Endwalker, which is coming down the road. But this leads me into tip number 2, so let's get right into it. Alright, so here we are in Uldal at the Alchemist Guild, and for tip number 2, essentially I would recommend picking up a crafting job to level up as you do your main combat class. So for example, I did alchemy because I'm playing a healer, so I'll go ahead and switch over to that. And with alchemy, instead of having to buy the potions outright, you can just straight up create them if you have the resources to do so. When you're making the ethers that you can buy at the shops, the really cheap ones, I believe all the resources that you need are at the little supplier in the alchemy shop. Let me use my one hand on my controller here to try to navigate my way there. But right over here, the supplier. Oh goodness, I need both hands for this. The supplier will have a lot of options in terms of early crafting for you that you can pick up to, of course, make a lot of potions and the like. There's also some crafting materials I think you can make. There's weapons too for wands, as well as the books for the Arcanist class, which will eventually become a scholar or summoner, depending how you go with that. There's a lot that you can do with alchemy, but mostly you want to pick up alchemy for the mana potions and the health potions too, if you want to have an extra source of healing if you're not playing a healing class. So if you're not doing alchemy, the other option I would recommend is Culinarian, which can be found in Limsa Lominsa. Eventually I will pick up Culinarian once I'm done with alchemy, but that one allows you to create the food items that you can use in order to give you those extra stats and experience bonus. So pretty much this game will give you plenty of gil. Just play the main story, you'll get a lot of gil, and I highly recommend dumping a good portion of that gil into whatever crafting class you pick up. You could alternatively just save the gil, and you know, if you want to get some sort of apartment or housing in the game, you can do that. But personally, I think practically it makes more sense to do a crafter job to supplement your combat class. So for example, because I am a white mage and a healer and I rely on mana, I pick up alchemy, create some MP potions, which currently I have. Let me switch over to my other class. On my hotbar, on my second hotbar, you can see I have mega ethers at the square area there, about 150 of them, which provide me with 800 MP. So if I'm low on mana, or you know, wanting to manage it a little bit better, I just pop one of those potions so I can provide more healing as needed. Things like that. And if you're not playing a healer, obviously as a DPS you can do health potions to give yourself, you know, the extra healing source if your healers are not, you know, healing you. Or you can just go into Culinarian and sort of min-max your stats that way through food. That's also an option. But I'd recommend only doing one. If you do both, that's a lot of gil to spend, and I mean, you could do both if you choose to do so. I would recommend just maxing out one and then worrying about the other once you're done with the other class you're doing. But other than that, that's pretty much tip number 2, and let's get right into tip number 3. This is all about innkeeps. So when you log out of the game, I know a lot of new players are just tempted to, you know, go to their system here and then just exit game and, you know, log out normally like that. However, if you come to these innkeeps in each major city, you can basically log out by sleeping in a bed, and doing so provides you a ton of bonus experience for you to accumulate as you quest. If you noticed my experience bar right now, there's a huge blue line leading up to the next level that I can achieve. Essentially what that is extra, essentially bonus experience to your experience gained. So essentially it works the same way as eating a food for the plus 3%. However, you're stacking that over time to essentially level quicker. So if you were to log out for a couple days and not play the game, you'll get a bunch of boosted experience for when you gain XP to make up the time lost, is essentially the incentive behind it. So whenever you're not playing the game, just come over to an innkeep, decide to stay in a room. They'll put you in the room, of course, and then you'll come over to this comfy bed here and just pick exit game or log out, and your character will do a animation where they climb into bed, and while you're away, you'll get boosted experience over time, essentially. So yeah, I highly recommend, if you're going to, you know, log out, just don't automatically exit game, and wherever you're at, go back to a major city and sleep in a bed for your character, and it will pay off tremendously when you come back into the game. In fact, you may even over level a bit. So yeah, that is tip number 3. And then finally, let's get into tip number 4, which I can do right here. It's not really much of a tip, but just a recommendation. Like, when you're playing this game, enjoy the journey, play the story, take your time, don't rush it, enjoy the story, because the story in this game is pretty good, and it's a hell of an adventure, and it's a great experience. So take your time, enjoy the game, and that's pretty much it. This is Elder Fabulous logging off. You take care and have an amazing day, week, year, life, all that good stuff.